this is not a part of the road. It's not marking on the road. It is actually the curb, and I should not be driving, on that part of the road. To a computer, it's hard to make that distinction. Okay, so many things we take for granted and say we just it's easy to do. It's not so easy for a computer. Why do you think it's not so easy for a computer?
They don't think the same way we do.
And how do you think computers think?
In a certain order.
Okay, who tells the computer how to think? We do. Well, at least up to now, it is still us. Okay, so if we don't really know how it works up here, it becomes pretty difficult to tell the computer how to do the same thing. Now, I think there will be a point where where programs will be written by other programs. Okay, I really think that day will come. It's not now. It's probably not in the next 20 years. But at some point, if computers can outthink us in terms of writing programs themselves. Okay, so until we get to that point, we are still better. Okay, yep. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's when it gets scary because then you get all the movie ideas in real life.
Yep. Doomsday, right? How computers will, either consider humans only as a source of energy, which makes no sense whatsoever. Okay, for those of you who watch The Matrix, the premise of the movie makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Okay, because humans derive our energy from food, and our food for the most part relies on solar energy. Okay. And computers can utilize solar energy directly by using solar panels and some other means. So using humans as batteries makes no sense whatsoever.
Come to think of it, why would a computer think it logical to have self-awareness in the first place?
Well, the question is, what is self-awareness, right? So we're diving into some kind of philosophical questions. I would love to have a class on those topics, because I spent a lot of time thinking about it, when I was in college and in graduate school. But for this class, we kind of have to do some, kind of more down to earth and boring, topics like developers and computer scientists and other people involved in computer programming and computer systems. All right. So for this part, you can read it. Okay, it's your job to read the text here, but it's my job to explain what it is. So we have about 7 minutes left, which is good. Let's think about building a house. So for the time being, forget about computer systems. We are thinking about building houses. So you have a really good lot, somewhere, let's say somewhere on Highway 1, on a cliff, and you oversee the Pacific Ocean. It's really a good site to build a house. What do you do when you are trying to build a house? Yep.
You have to take into landscape, make sure you have the solid ground. You have to take into lighting.
Okay.
How close it is to noise, depending on what the preferences are of the person who's going to be living there and all the other.
Okay, so let's think about it from the perspective of you being the owner of the lot, okay, and you are the one who want to build a house over there. And let's say that you have no knowledge of how to build a house or how to design a house and stuff like that. You just know what you want. Okay, I want to live here and I want to enjoy the view and so on and so forth. Okay, so you know what the requirements are because after all, it is going to be your house and you're going to be living there. So what kind of people or what kind of experts do you need to hire to start this entire process? Yep.
Well, you need a subcontractor, and then you need contractors that you need to figure out your vendors where you're going to get your windows, your lumber, and all that stuff.
Okay, but in order to know what kind of windows you need, who do you need? Who do you need? An architect. Okay, the first one would be an architect. Okay, so what does an architect do in the case of building a house?
Design.
What would be, let's say you are the client, okay, you own that lot, I'm the architect, okay? What would be the questions and answers in our first meeting? Yeah.
But that's going to make a roof.
No, not even close, sorry. At some point we'll get there, okay, so you're a little bit ahead of me. Yep.
How many rooms do you want?
How many rooms? Even that is a little bit ahead of me. Yep.
Price range.
Price range, that's important, but we'll talk about that. Yep.
Purpose.
Purpose, okay? So purpose is one, and
Requirement, what is the requirement of the client? Like, what is the
Ex-
homeowner wants? So
exactly, what are the requirements? So as a client, you might tell me something as vague as, I want an open view of the ocean. Okay? And I want to be able to wake up, to an ocean view. I want to be able to walk out to the patio, and not only to see, but also to feel the crash of the wave, crashing onto the cliffs. And I want my lot, I want my house to have a panoramic view of the ocean side and stuff like that. So you can give me very vague descriptions like that. You can even add even more vague descriptions, like I like, entertaining guests. Okay, I might have up to 20 or 30 guests at a time. Okay, and I want to be able to enjoy, swimming in my own swimming pool and yet have a view of the ocean at the same time. Those are requirements. As a client, you don't know how it can be done. You don't know how many rooms you will need. You don't know how many bathrooms you will need. You don't know, which window will be how big facing which side, using what material. You just know the outcome. I want my house to have these properties. That's going to be the content of the very first meeting with your architect. Okay? The architect will take all this information in and then try to, come up with more solid numbers. Okay, you want about 30 guests, okay, at a time. So how many garages do you need? How many bathrooms do you need? How many bedrooms do you need? How big do you need, how big, okay, how do we arrange the dining, the eating arrangement? Okay, how big is your dining room? How big is your kitchen? Okay, so from your requirements, I will come up with more concrete numbers. Okay, and I will say you need this much square footage to be to basically entertain about 30 people at a time. Your living room has to be at least this big to comfortably accommodate 30 people. And I might even come back to you and ask, do you want to have a bar, in that room so you can serve, alcoholic, beverages and stuff like that? Because some people may not feel that's important. Some people think that's important. Okay, so it's the same thing here. When you want, when let's say Bank of America wants to come up with a new information system to deal with their needs, they would contact, not an architect in this case, they would contact a systems analyst to do the job of an architect. So the Bank of America, what kind of requirement do you think is appropriate for an information system, for a banking system? Security, okay. So how do you specify security requirements?
You have to somehow create sort of like a user, so you have like a chain of command in a way. So you have main bank as the head of it, and then you have the individual bank members as people who can do stuff but not have too much control over what the system
Okay,
does.
so the vague requirement maybe, we want to make sure that we do not let hackers hack into the system easily, and the systems analyst will have to kind of figure out exactly how to accomplish that. What other requirements do you have for a bank information system?
Authentication.
Well, that kind of ties into security.
User
Okay?
interfaces.
Easy, user-friendly interface, intuitive interface. Okay, so we don't want to go through 20 clicks just to pay a bill, right? To pay one single invoice. Yep.
How many people are going to be using that?
Okay, so in terms of performance, we may have up to 20,000 customers using the system at the same time. Yep.
How easily accessible it is. If it's going to be on a mobile computer,
All right.
it's going to be on a computer.
Okay,
It's gonna have
computer
really
and mobile
good
accessible.
bank to do it.
Okay. Yep.
Consistency and reliability.
All right.
Consistency and reliability.
Consistency and reliability. Now that's a big thing. Uptime is a big thing. Okay, I want this system to be available 99.9% of the time. I don't want it to be I don't want to have to shut it down to maintain it. Okay, because reliability and uptime are really two things. Okay, some systems are extremely reliable, but it requires a reboot every day. Okay, so that means there's downtime to the system. So those are all requirements that you have to tell to the systems analyst. The system analyst will look at all those kind of vague, requirements, and then come back with a slightly more solid design, and go over with you, with a more solid design. Just like an architect will come back with a rough picture of your house, not everything in place, but we'll kind of come up with a number like, okay, with 30 people, I think we need about 15 rooms for your guests, and maybe 6 bathrooms, located here, here, and here. And because you want your bedroom to have a view of the ocean, so the master bedroom will be looking, on the ocean side, with really wide, glass panels for the windows, okay, and so on and so forth. You look at the design and go like, oh, I just forgot to tell you, I also want to have the ability to entertain my guests outside. Okay, so you might need some additional things, like how do you get outside of the house, how do you get back in, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there are all these requirements that you need to convey to the architect in this case, and then the architect will slowly turn it into the final product. The final product from the architect's perspective is not the house, it's the blueprint of the house. Okay. Yep.
So it's like the SDLC,
SD.
software development lifecycle.
Yes. So we are at the very first stage of the life cycle right now. It's just to figure out what the requirements are and how do we specify the house or this information system in this case. Now, just because you can design something doesn't mean it can be built. Okay? So that's the next step is, how do we build a house? And in the case of building a house, you need a civil engineer to go through the design and make sure that it is safe and is feasible. But in this case, a systems analyst is also responsible for the feasibility of an information system. So we'll continue this next time on Thursday. I will send email to people on the wait list. So if you receive an email from me, I will give you a permission number to add to the class based on the number of people who did not put their name or initial next to the name. If you were outside before and you're actually in the class, you might want to come in and put your initial next to your name.
So you will be emailing us the permission numbers?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good to see you again. By the way.